Right now, the best athletes in the world are preparing to compete at the 2026 FIFA World Cup. They have sleep scientists, nutritionists, sports psychologists, sports physiologists, exercise physiologists, all working around the clock for one single goal: to make sure that every single player performs at their absolute peak of what their body is capable of. For the next 90 minutes, they need to compete under extreme pressure and arguably the biggest sport in the world. Meanwhile, you, arguably a more complex, higher stakes operator than any of them, are running on 4 hours sleep. You're skipping meals, you're traveling across time zones, you've got no recovery protocol in place, and you're wondering, why can't I think straight by 3 p.m.? Why do I get these afternoon crashes? I feel sluggish. I need 9 coffees just to wake up in the morning. The science that keeps elite footballers performing is the same science that your own body runs on. And today, we're going to use the World Cup to decode exactly how to perform at your best and really what it's costing you if you don't. If you've ever sat in an important meeting, you might even be still studying. You're nodding along and realize you've not really retained anything that you have been told by your employer, by the CEO of the company, by even your teacher, because your brain has been running on fumes. And you're not alone. You push through because that's what you've always done. But really, there's a difference between mental toughness and ignoring the signals that your body's sending you. The difference between you and elite athletes is that they don't ignore these signals. They monitor their health metrics. Sure, they're going to go deeper than you. They may even do more blood work than you. But the basic fundamentals of your own human physiology is the exact same, which is the most bizarre thing, to think that we are the same as elite athletes. We are still human beings. They just operate very, very differently. There's obviously a genetic predisposition to perform at a particular high level, but they've still got red blood cells. They've still got a brain. They've still got a heart. They've still got lungs. And we need to understand that we can operate in a similar fashion to get better ourselves. We don't necessarily have to be world champions or hold a golden boot or a World Cup above our heads, but we can still operate really well in our own lives. Travel is going to be a big thing with most people. People will travel for holidays, to visit friends and family. And if you're an elite sports person, you're probably traveling often for just game day. If you've ever landed after a long haul flight, gone straight into a boardroom and felt like you were performing at about 60% of your capability, this is normal. Like, just isn't tiredness. It's a full circadian disruption. It affects your reaction time, your decision making, your emotional regulation, your ability to be able to remember what the fuck was going on in the conversation. It affects your nutritional choices, which, if they are poor, that will lead to more fatigue, tiredness, crashes in the afternoon, because you're not supplying your body with sufficient fuel. Here's what I want to say before we go any further. You're not less capable than a professional footballer, which might seem like a bizarre thing to say. Now, I'm not saying you are a professional footballer and that you can go out there tomorrow, kick a ball around and become Ronaldo in 3 years. But what I am saying is that you, in many ways, at least when you're trying to operate at the highest level, and many of the listeners are CEOs of companies, C-suite executives, they are entrepreneurs, they are founders, they are people that really just want to be better in any field and any facet, even if you're not operating at the highest level, but you are still undergoing a higher total cognitive load, or a high total cognitive load, sometimes even more than professional athletes, which sounds bizarre, but momentarily athletes, their cognitive output is going to be far greater than yours. But for moments in time, they can't operate like that all the time. Whereas what I find in today's day and age, in the normal world, is that oftentimes we operate very differently to what our physiology allows. We just want more. And especially in hustle culture, we want more work. It feels like nowadays, I've been in the working force for 24 years now, which seems bizarre. I legally or illegally was working at 12 years old. At a 12? I think it was 12. 12 years old at a car wash. it feels like nowadays we're just working more and we're not exactly getting paid astronomically more either, but our employers want more out of us. Everything needs to be more, more, more. But there is no balance. And it's interesting when you're looking at the highest performing people in the world that they don't operate that way. Sure, they put in long hours and big weeks. And if you look at professional athletes, as a professional athlete myself for 3 years, it's not like that at all. We in the normal world operate so differently. They go extremely hard for very, very short periods of time. They rest, recover, relax, and then they go hard again. But that's not what our world rewards. It wants us just to be there for longer. It wants us to push harder. I saw an interview with a guy, an author, I think he's called Eric Jorgensen. He did the book on Naval Ravikant called The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. And he's recently done one on Elon Musk. And essentially, Elon looks to hire young, extremely intelligent people and drive the fuck out of them in terms of their output and get as much out of them as possible. And then they eventually quit, and then he just hires somebody else in their space. Because what he wants is people to operate and work 100 plus hours a week, move as fast as they possibly can. And then once they're burned out, it kind of replaces the battery with somebody else. And somebody else does the same thing, and so on and so forth. And that's kind of what the world has slowly become. Whereas if you look at an athlete, they've got one job, perform physically for 90 minutes or so. Whereas you need to perform intellectually, emotionally, strategically for 12 to 16 hours a day across multiple domains simultaneously. But the real difference is that they have systems. Someone is managing their sleep, someone is planning their nutrition, someone is monitoring their stress response and recovery. Their entire infrastructure of their performance is prioritized. It is managed. It is built by someone else, but you don't have that. So what you need to do, and what we're going to be going into today, is how do you do that for yourself? And we're going to be doing that through a little bit of a Q&A. We've got some questions that the audience, thank you so much for the people that have sent these in. The advice you've been given is get more sleep, eat better, try yoga, but there's nothing specific about you as an individual. You can't just hand an elite footballer a banana and a foam roller and say, get to it. It's like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with this? And what kinky shit are you into? What you need is not vague wellness advice. You need the same systematic, evidence-based approach to your own performance as elite athletes do. The first question that we've got, Abi, I travel for work constantly. What is jet lag actually doing to my body? And why do I feel so terrible for days after a long flight? So jet lag itself is not just tiredness. We briefly touched on it earlier. It is a full circadian misalignment, meaning your internal body clock, your sleep-wake cycle is out of sync with your external environment. Every biological process, your hormone releasing, your metabolism, your metabolic rate, your cognitive function, your immune response, all runs on your circadian rhythm. Basically, your body, the second that you get up, it starts to drive up cortisol. It tells the body, hey, it's time to wake up and start to do shit. I need you to be operating really, really highly here. I need all cylinders on the go. And then as it starts to get really past midday and then 3 o'clock-ish and in the afternoon, things start to really slow down in the hope that the body just wants to chill out a little bit. It's like, okay, I need to start relaxing now because I need to go to sleep, and I'm preparing for that. So when that is disrupted, everything starts to downgrade simultaneously or degrade simultaneously. Research on the 2026 World Cup published in Sports Medicine from Loughborough University confirmed that players crossing up to 19 time zones face circadian misalignment, leading to sleep disruption, fatigue, and measurable reduced cognitive sharpness, decision-making, and reaction time. So what you'll find is that players will not get there the day before. They'll try and get there a week or two beforehand just to try and adapt. Really, that is just to adapt to the time zone. Their training and nutrition likely won't change much, but what will change is their body's ability just to be able to adapt to the local time zone. The next question that we've got here is, what can I actually do about jet lag? I can't change my travel schedule, which is a great question. A lot of times you can't due to work and other responsibilities. So you can't avoid crossing time zones, but you certainly can manage the recovery window, and elite athletes protocols work just as well for executives, founders, entrepreneurs, and the everyday person. Light exposure is probably the most powerful circadian reset tools. Morning sunlight, essentially The sunlight in your eyes through your retina essentially stimulates your melatonin response. So trying to get that early in the day essentially downregulates melatonin. You don't need it. And then as it starts to get darker, leading up to bedtime, is why we try to advise people in the high performance space to get light early in the day and try to mitigate later in the day. As it starts to get dark, melatonin response or secretion will start to increase, and that will give our body the signal, hey, it's time to start to go to sleep. Things such as timed exposure to bright light is going to help, i.e. more in the morning, less at night. Alcohol and caffeine avoidance. Alcohol and caffeine disrupt sleep. So anything after really midday for caffeine, don't consume. If you find that drinking later in the day, as in like a glass of wine after dinner, for example, disrupts your sleep, don't do it. Optimal meal timing is going to be great as well. Ideally, not consuming any foods around 3 hours leading up to bedtime is a good general rule of thumb to be able to follow. Especially when you're traveling, alcohol on plane, it's a big no-no. You don't need it. You're fine. You don't need to get drunk on an airplane. There's nothing that exciting. You don't need to get fucking Larry on an airplane. Save that for the club. And if you're not in the club, don't worry about it. Water is fine. Diet soda is totally fine as well. Next question. I know that sleep is important, but I genuinely don't have time for 8 hours. Is this really a big deal? Yes. Yes, it is. The research in elite sport is unequivocal, and it does apply to your performance daily. Understanding that 8 hours might not be optimal, but you can still get quality of sleep over quantity. So if you can't get 8 hours, a strong 5 to 6 hours might be all you can get. So it's like, great, how do we make sure that those 5 to 6 hours is as best as we possibly can? And the way that we do that is the following. As I mentioned earlier, light early in the day, but also I'm a big fan of protecting the last 60 to 90 minutes before you go to bed, meaning no doom scrolling, no screens whatsoever. So no TV, no iPad, no screens from your phone. Put all that shit on airplane mode, turn it off. If you can mitigate blue light exposure from fluorescent lights, turn your lights off, just use salt lamps around the house. It's a beautiful, dimmed, chill vibe. If you've got a fireplace, even better. No fluids or foods leading up to bedtime, that lasts 60 to 90 minutes. If you've got kids, read them a bedtime story. Chill out, brush your teeth. You've got the bath times done. You've had food. You've brushed their teeth. You've gone and read a book. Have a great little family moment. And then the last 30 minutes or so, jump in bed, relax. You don't have to go to sleep. Just chill. Let your brain start to unwind. Let your body start to relax a little bit. Light stretching is really beneficial as well. Have a conversation with your partner. Fuck me. Like you've not spoken to them all day. Go have a chat with your partner. Say, how was your day? What do you got going on here? And let's connect a little bit. You got plenty of time for it. You're just choosing it to do other dumb shit like scrolling your fucking phone. A comprehensive 2024 narrative review in PMC covered elite athlete sleep, confirmed that inadequate sleep negatively affects physical strength, endurance, cognitive function, and injury risk. People often think that they can sacrifice sleep throughout the week and catch up on a weekend. That catching up just means you've got a little bit more sleep. It doesn't mean that you can completely recover your sleep debt, which is why consistency is much more important. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's better to be consistent. Next question is, how does nutrition affect daily energy and focus? And what can we learn from professional footballers? Elite footballers practice carbohydrate periodization. Eating more carbs when output demands are high and fewer when output demands are low. The body is always running off two main energy systems. That is going to be fats, and that is going to be carbohydrates. So what we ideally want to do is be able to use the right tool for the right job. If you are, for example, not performing high intensity training, you likely don't need a ton of carbohydrates. Let's keep them low. But if you are performing it, such as pre a gym session, carbohydrates are a great fuel source. So jack them up. Somewhere around that 3 to 6 grams per a kilogram of body weight is good. Everyone's going to be a little bit different. Those are just general guidelines. But if you are performing something such as a long hike, you don't need a ton of carbohydrates. You can fuel yourself with fat as well. So if you're looking at elite athletes, they will, again, this is very individual, but generally keep most of their carbohydrate consumption around their training, and the rest of it, they don't need a ton. So they may opt for more starchy carbs, may have more like sweet potatoes, for example, slower releasing carbohydrates. They may have more fats in their diet as well as a sufficient amount of protein. What I find with especially the high performers in other fields is that they'll skip breakfast. They're on the go from the second that they wake up, might have kids to get sorted and get into the office, so they'll skip breakfast. And then what they'll basically do is undereat throughout the day, might have a little bit of lunch, might have a client lunch, for example, and then they will get a bunch of their calories leading up until bedtime, which generally, because you're consuming such a large amount in a short amount of time, they're trying to go to sleep, creates some GI upset, some gastric distress, some bloating. You'll be fighting like hell, which your partner won't be very happy with. Happens for girls as well as guys. Just saying, it's not only guys. But it's not great lead up to bedtime. Ideally, we want to try and have as much of an empty stomach as possible, let the digestive process happen the way it needs to happen, let it do its thing, and then be able to increase the likelihood that we can fall asleep really quickly. I mean, what is VO2 max? Why do I keep hearing about it? And what is it the most important health metric I should care about? So VO2 max is put very, very simply, VO2 max is your body's maximum capacity to use oxygen during exercise. It is the single best objective measurement for your overall cardiovascular fitness. And it is also a powerful predictor of how long and how well you're going to live. It's a predictor, not a be all and end all. There was a landmark meta-analysis of 398,718. Let's try to get that number right. Participant published in 2025 found that normal weight but unfit individuals had nearly double the cardiovascular and all-cause mortality risk compared to overweight but fit individuals, meaning fitness matters more than weight when it comes to survival. Research from the JACC found that each unit increase in VO2 max was associated with a 45-day increase in longevity over the course of a career. Improving your VO2 max could add years to your healthy life. World Cup footballers have a VO2 max values in the high 50s to 60s per milliliter of kilogram per minute. The average sedentary 40-year-old professional in their 30s, that gap basically represent meaningful years to their life. So basically, VO2 max in elite athletes is going to be very, very high. They need it for their sport. It's not going to be anywhere near quite as high in the 50s and 60s for most average everyday people. But fitness is going to be a strong precursor to longevity. So it is important. It is something to be able to pay attention to and something to be able to add into your training. Question. I work under enormous pressure every day. What do elite athletes do mentally that most professionals don't? Great question. A 2024 meta study published in the International Review of Sport and Exercise Psychology identified self-efficacy, demand appraisal, mental toughness, and task-focused resource allocation as 4 key factors that facilitate performance under pressure in elite athletes. When you're trying to work under enormous pressure, the first thing to understand is that your baseline of pressure needs to be understood. Like, this is normal. This is not this heightened stressful state. This is the norm. This is the standard. This is what I'm here for. This is the job. Okay. There's going to be certain moments where you might have a deadline where pressure increases, but for the most part, you need to be operating in a manner that allows you to be able to have your cognitive output as efficient as possible, meaning that you can't always stay in a stressed out state. We need to be in as relaxed and as a focused, is probably the better word, state as possible to be able to get the result that we want, meaning I need to get to a deadline, I need to earn X amount, I need to make sure that my P&L is in a certain spot, my profit margins are at whatever they need to be at. I need to make sure that I am operating really fucking functionally. And a way that a lot of athletes do this is controlled breathing, which sounds so simplistic, but before high stakes moments, self-talk, the understanding of like, I'm good, I'm still alive, I'm still breathing. Self-talk and breathing drills are going to be 2 of the best things that you can do. And a really easy breathing drill that Dr. Andrew Huberman promoted was it's the double inhale and long exhale. So it's inhale twice through your nose and then long exhale. Okay, what we're essentially trying to do there is get our body from a sympathetic state into a parasympathetic state. Sympathetic meaning our fight or flight state, like we're heightened, we're ready, blood's rushing to our extremities, our arms and our legs, we're ready to fight or to run. We need to get away from that. We need to pull things back a little bit, allow blood to flow naturally in throughout the body and throughout the brain as well. And we need to just relax. And trying to get into that parasympathetic state allows us to be able to problem solve better, allows us to be able to focus better as well. Now, there's a few frameworks that we've spoken about, and I want to kind of give you a solution-based framework that anyone can apply to their life. So here are 5 elite athlete performance protocols directly translated to everyday life for you to incorporate from today. First is to build a travel recovery protocol and use it every single time. Decide in advance what you do on a long-haul flight and after landing. Meaning, it might be, I don't drink alcohol on planes. I get morning sunlight at the destination that I am in within the first hour of waking. Yeah, I'm going to feel a little bit groggy because I might have only had a couple of hours sleep, but I need to get sunlight in my eyes for my body to be able to adapt to the local time zone. And try and time your meals to the local time zone. So if you normally eat at 6 a.m., 10 a.m., 2 p.m., 6 p.m., 9 p.m., in your normal time zone, make that the same as the new time zone. The second is to treat sleep as a performance asset, not as a lifestyle preference. Not like, I'd prefer sleep 5 hours and get more work done. I can binge watch Netflix episodes more. It is setting a minimum floor. 7 hours is the evidence-based minimum. So make it 7 hours at least. Get more, perfect. Protect it the same way that you protect a board meeting or that you protect watching your favorite sports team. If Arsenal are playing against PSG and you're like, no, I've got to stay up and I've got to make sure that this time is protected. I'm turning my phone on airplane mode and I'm just locked into the game. That's the kind of mentality that you need to be able to protect your sleep. And incorporating the things that I mentioned earlier, that last 60 to 90 minutes, protect it. No phones, no screens, no fluids, and try and spend the last sort of 30 minutes in bed, just relaxing. 3 is to fuel before your hardest work, not after. Eat breakfast. Time your highest carbohydrate meals around your most demanding tasks throughout the day. So if you've got a big training session, carbohydrates before and after. What I will say is if you are in a meeting, I find that keeping carbohydrates low leading into the meeting works well for most people, not all people, but for most people. So if you've got a breakfast of eggs, avocado, sourdough, fruit, honey, and a coffee, for example, I would reduce the carbs, just taking out the sourdough. I think just taking out that will allow you to be able to just be a little bit more focused, because basically what it does, it allows energy to be a bit more sustained versus carbohydrates. You have this nice spike, and then as insulin sort of gets released into your bloodstream from your pancreas, it will start to do its job, and that can sometimes let blood sugar drop because your blood sugar spikes, then it kind of drops, and then it regulates. And we want to kind of reduce that fluctuation as much as we possibly can. The next, I would focus on building your aerobic base. 3 sessions per week for around 8 weeks, 30 minutes, continuous exercise, whether that's from rowing, running, cycling, swimming, playing tennis, pickleball, whatever you want. Doing that consistently for 8 weeks, you will be able to sustain that for a very, very long time. Aerobic capacity or building an aerobic base takes a decent amount of time to be able to build, but it will also sustain for a very long time as well. So I just run that for 8 weeks. And then I would progressively start to decrease that, because you might not have time to do it forever. But if you run that for 8 weeks, then you decrease to 2 sessions, then potentially even 1 60-minute session, for example, I think that's going to be a strong way to be able to build your VO2 mass and sustain it. And then I would lastly create a pre-performance ritual for high stakes moments. Before your most important meetings, calls, decisions, just 2 minutes of diaphragmatic breathing. Double inhale, long exhale, just 2 minutes of it. Get your body into the state. And then also have the mindset shift of like, what is the most important thing that I need to go into this meeting with? What is the most important intention that I need to go into this meeting with? That's what elite athletes do before a game. Before every game, it's like, what is my intention? As a defender, my intention is not to let them score. My intention is to win every encounter. As a striker, I want to get away every shot. As a if you're crossing the ball in, it's like, make sure that someone meets that ball every single time. Someone from my team must meet that ball. Creating these pre-performance rituals can really, really help. Understand that elite performance isn't a gift, it's a system. It's something that has been systematized and followed for a long period of time for athletes to be able to excel in their sport. And right now, the best athletes in the world are proving that on the biggest stage in sport, they are being able to perform at the highest level, not because they're a superhuman, because someone built the right conditions for their biology to be able to perform. And you have the same biology. You run on the same science. All the research referenced in today's episode is linked below in the Spotify bio below. Every journal, every study, you can go deep into it if you want to. And I hope this episode landed for you. Understanding that what we can see in elite athletes, we can replicate a lot of these things ourselves. It just takes us the know-how, and I'm hoping you got that from this episode. But also, it takes us the understanding of, I can do this. I can do this as long as I systematize it, as long as I put these things in place. And they don't always have to be perfect, but just intentional. And if they are intentional, they can allow us to be able to still perform highly in our own lives. If this landed for you, share it with someone who you know is running on empty and calling it hustle, which we are all guilty for. And I will see you in the next episode.